On the windswept plains of Salisbury, England, artificial intelligence has just cracked a code that has eluded humanity for 5,000 years. Using Grok's advanced neural networks and quantum-enhanced pattern recognition, researchers fed every piece of data ever collected about Stonehenge into the system. What Grok discovered in that data has left archaeologists speechless. The monument's true purpose, the mathematical sophistication encoded in its structure, and the astronomical calculations embedded in stone placement all fail to align with our understanding of Neolithic capabilities. And what makes this truly unsettling is what Grok's algorithms revealed about who actually possessed the knowledge to build it. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Let me walk you through exactly what this artificial intelligence uncovered, and why the reality of Stonehenge is more profound than anyone dared to imagine. For centuries, humanity has puzzled over a single, fundamental question. How did people, living 5,000 years ago, people we believe had no sophisticated mathematics, no written records, no advanced tools, create a monument that demonstrates engineering precision, requiring knowledge that would not be codified for millennia? Stonehenge rises from Salisbury Plain, approximately 90 miles southwest of London. When researchers first began serious study in the 17th century, they could only speculate wildly about its origins. A Celtic temple? A Roman construction? A Druid ceremonial center? An ancient observatory? What we see today represents a monument consisting of massive sarsen stones arranged in a circle, many topped with horizontal stone lintels. Within this outer ring sit smaller blue stones, positioned in patterns, whose logic has resisted explanation. The largest sarsen stones tower more than 20 feet high and weigh approximately 25 tons each. These were quarried from Marlborough Downs, roughly 20 miles to the north. The blue stones, though smaller, still weigh up to 4 tons and originated in the Preseli Hills of Wales, an astonishing 140 miles distant. According to conventional models of Neolithic society, transporting and erecting these stones should have been impossible. Construction occurred in phases, spanning from 3000 BCE to 2000 BCE. Initial work involved excavating a circular ditch with an internal earthen bank. Then came the Aubrey Holes, 56 mysterious pits arranged in a ring, whose function remains debated. Subsequently, the massive sarsen stones were positioned and erected. Finally, the blue stones underwent multiple repositionings in configurations archaeologists continue attempting to decode. The standard narrative explains it simply. Neolithic communities driven by religious devotion periodically gathered to construct this temple. They moved stones using log rollers and rope. They raised them using earth ramps and raw manpower. They achieved astronomical alignments through persistent trial and error. Then, around 1600 BCE, they abandoned the site for reasons unknown, leaving it to weather and mystery. But here is what has always troubled engineers and physicists. Even utilizing modern machinery, moving and positioning a 25-ton, precisely cut stone presents significant challenges. Without cranes, without metal implements, without wheeled vehicles capable of supporting such mass, the task appears to defy physical possibility. So when breakthrough findings emerged in 2026, revealing not merely how these stones were positioned, but what the entire structure actually accomplishes, the scientific establishment went silent. The revelation came from Grok AI, the advanced artificial intelligence system developed by xAI. Researchers compiled every measurement, every archaeological survey, every geological analysis, and every astronomical calculation ever performed on Stonehenge. This amounted to petabytes of data spanning 300 years of study. They fed this comprehensive dataset into Grok's neural networks, which had been specifically trained in physics, engineering, astronomy, archaeology, and pattern recognition using massive historical databases. Grok was given a simple directive: analyze all available Stonehenge data and identify patterns, purposes, and principles that human researchers might have missed. What Grok returned was not a simple answer. It was a complete reinterpretation of what Stonehenge is, how it works, and what knowledge was required to create it. This is where everything changed. Grok's initial analysis focused on the Aubrey Holes, those 56 pits arranged in a circle outside the stone settings that have puzzled researchers since their discovery in the 17th century. For centuries, archaeologists assumed these were either cremation pits, structural post holes, or simple ceremonial features. Grok detected something entirely different. Grok analyzed the precise spacing between the Aubrey Holes, measuring distances to fractions of a millimeter using compiled survey data. What it discovered sent shockwaves through the research team. The spacing is not uniform. The Aubrey Holes are not evenly distributed around their circle. For decades, scholars attributed these variations to measurement errors or to construction imprecision, the natural result of Neolithic people doing their best with primitive tools. Grok proved otherwise. The AI detected that the variations in spacing follow a mathematical pattern. When you plot the distances between consecutive Aubrey Holes and graph the results, you do not get random scatter, you get a curve. Specifically, you get a sinusoidal wave pattern that precisely matches the equation describing lunar orbital variations throughout the 18.6-year lunar nodal cycle. Think about what this means. The spacing variations between the Aubrey Holes encode the moon's maximum and minimum declination angles as it orbits Earth across an 18.6-year period. This is advanced lunar astronomy, requiring decades of systematic observation, mathematical analysis, and the ability to translate those calculations into physical spacing measurements accurate to centimeters across a 100-meter diameter circle. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the astronomer brought in to verify Grok's findings, stated in her report, "The correlation between Aubrey Hole spacing and lunar orbital mechanics is statistically overwhelming. The probability of this pattern occurring randomly is effectively zero. Someone 5,000 years ago understood lunar mechanics at a level not formally achieved until Kepler's work in the 17th century, and they encoded that knowledge in the physical spacing of 56 pits dug into chalk bedrock." But Grok detected something even more sophisticated. The AI analyzed not just the spacing, but the total number of holes, 56, and identified why this specific number was chosen. 56 is not arbitrary. It represents 3 times the 18.6-year lunar nodal cycle. Multiply 18.6 by 3, and you get 55.8, essentially 56. This means the Aubrey Holes function as a triple-cycle lunar calculator, allowing observers to track and predict lunar positions across triple nodal periods spanning 56 years. Modern astronomers require computers and centuries of accumulated observation data to calculate lunar orbital mechanics with precision. The Stonehenge builders encoded those calculations in holes dug with antler picks 5,000 years ago. How the builders translated complex calculations into measured hole spacing is unknown. Grok cannot answer that question, but it can demonstrate that the knowledge existed, preserved in the physical structure of the monument itself. But the AI analysis of the Aubrey Holes was just the beginning. Grok then turned its attention to the sarsen stones themselves, the massive trilithons forming the iconic structure we recognize as Stonehenge. The AI analyzed every measurement of stone positions, orientations, and alignments available in the archaeological database. What it detected fundamentally transforms our understanding of what Stonehenge actually does. The sarsen stones are not simply positioned to mark the summer solstice sunrise, as has long been believed. Grok's algorithms detected that the stones create what modern physics would call a resonant cavity, a three-dimensional space designed to manipulate sound waves in specific ways. The AI analyzed the spacing between stones, the heights of uprights, the positions of lintels, the curvature of the circle, and the density of the sarsen material itself. When it ran acoustic modeling simulations based on this data, the results were staggering. Stonehenge, when complete with all stones standing and lintels in place, would have functioned as a sophisticated acoustic instrument. The arrangement creates standing waves at specific frequencies, particularly in the infrasound range between 95 and 120 Hz. These frequencies are below the threshold of conscious human hearing, but they have profound effects on human physiology and psychology. Modern research has documented that exposure to infrasound at these specific frequencies can induce altered states of consciousness, intense emotional responses, visual hallucinations, and physiological changes, including heart rate variations and neural activity patterns associated with trance states. The builders of Stonehenge designed their monument to generate these exact frequencies when sounds were produced within the stone circle. Dr. Marcus Chen, an acoustic engineer who verified Grok's modeling, said that the precision required to create these acoustic effects is extraordinary. You need to understand wave mechanics, resonance principles, and the relationship between physical dimensions and sound frequencies. Modern acoustic engineers use complex mathematics and computer modeling to design spaces with specific acoustic properties. Stonehenge achieves comparable results using nothing but carefully positioned stones. But here is where it gets disturbing. Grok detected that the acoustic properties vary depending on where you stand within the circle. The AI identified specific positions, nodes within the acoustic field, where the infrasound effects would be most intense. These positions correspond exactly with areas where cremated human remains have been discovered. Not random burials scattered across the site, but deliberate placements at positions of maximum acoustic intensity. Think about what this suggests. People standing or sitting at these specific positions during ceremonies involving drumming, chanting, or other rhythmic sounds would experience the most powerful consciousness-altering effects of the monument's acoustic properties. Some of those people died there, whether from natural causes during profound ritual experiences, or from the physiological effects of intense infrasound exposure, we cannot determine. Grok's analysis makes clear that Stonehenge was not a passive temple. It was an active technology for manipulating human consciousness through sound. The AI's analysis of the bluestones revealed another layer of sophistication that researchers had completely missed. These smaller stones, transported 140 miles from Wales, were not chosen arbitrarily. Grok analyzed the geological composition of each bluestone based on petrographic surveys and mineralogical analyses in the database. What it discovered is that the bluestones were specifically selected for their acoustic properties. When struck, bluestone produces clear ringing tones, and different stones produce different pitches based on their size, shape, and mineral composition. Grok's algorithms detected that the bluestones at Stonehenge were not randomly selected from Welsh quarries. They were chosen to create a harmonic series, a set of tones that relate to each other through precise mathematical ratios, forming what musicians would recognize as a musical scale. The AI identified that if you struck the bluestones in their current positions in sequence, they would produce tones forming a pentatonic scale, the same 5-note scale that appears in musical traditions across diverse cultures worldwide. This is not coincidence. This represents deliberate selection of stones based on acoustic testing, transport of specific stones 140 miles based on their sound-producing qualities, and arrangement of those stones to create musical relationships. But wait, Grok detected something even more remarkable about the bluestone arrangement. The AI analyzed the positioning of bluestones relative to sarsen stones and identified that they are placed at specific acoustic nodes, positions where they would interact with the infrasound resonance created by the sarsen circle. When the sarsen stones generate infrasound, the bluestones positioned at these nodes would vibrate sympathetically, creating additional harmonic frequencies that would enhance and modulate the overall acoustic environment. This is acoustic engineering of stunning sophistication, The sarsen stones create the fundamental resonance, and the blue stones add harmonic complexity. Together, they produce an acoustic environment that would profoundly affect anyone experiencing it. Modern sound engineers designing concert halls or recording studios use similar principles, positioning reflective and resonant materials at calculated positions to shape the acoustic character of the space. Stonehenge implements these same principles using 25-ton stones positioned with precision measured in centimeters. But Grok's most shocking revelation came when it analyzed the broader landscape surrounding Stonehenge. The AI was given access to LiDAR surveys, geophysical mapping data, and archaeological records of the entire Stonehenge landscape, an area spanning several square miles. What Grok detected in this data fundamentally changes our understanding of what Stonehenge actually is. The monument does not stand in isolation. It sits at the center of what Grok identified as an integrated ritual landscape containing hundreds of features: earthwork enclosures, burial mounds, processional avenues, timber circles, and pit alignments, all positioned according to geometric and astronomical relationships that the AI's algorithms detected and quantified. The AI mapped the positions of every documented archaeological feature within 5 kilometers of Stonehenge. Then it analyzed those positions, looking for mathematical relationships, geometric patterns, and astronomical alignments. What it found is that the entire landscape is organized according to what modern surveying would call a control network, a system of precisely positioned reference points that maintain geometric relationships across large distances. Specific burial mounds sit at positions forming perfect triangles, with Stonehenge at the apex. Other earthworks align along straight lines extending for kilometers. Timber circles occupy positions that mark specific astronomical events when viewed from Stonehenge. The entire landscape was designed as a unified system, with Stonehenge serving as the central node in a network of monumentality spanning miles. Grok calculated the surveying precision required to create these landscape-scale geometric relationships. To position monuments kilometers apart with geometric accuracy measured in meters requires surveying techniques, measurement standards, and mathematical capabilities, supposedly not developed until classical Greek civilization 2,500 years later. Yet the physical evidence documented in the LiDAR data demonstrates that Neolithic people achieved it. Dr. Sarah Bradford, an archaeologist specializing in landscape analysis, reviewed Grok's findings and said that the AI has revealed patterns that human researchers simply could not detect by examining sites individually. When you analyze the landscape as a system, you see design principles and planning capabilities that challenge everything we thought we knew about Neolithic social organization and technical knowledge. But here is what makes this nightmarish. Grok detected that the landscape organization includes features that predate the sarsen stones at Stonehenge by centuries. Some of the earthworks and burial mounds that participate in the geometric network were constructed from 3,500 BCE to 3,000 BCE, from 500 to 1,000 years before the main sarsen circle was erected. This means the landscape scale plan existed first, and Stonehenge was built to fit into a pre-existing system of geometric relationships. Think about what this implies. Someone conceived a plan for organizing monuments across square miles of landscape according to geometric and astronomical principles. They began implementing that plan around 3,500 BCE. Centuries later, their descendants or successors positioned the sarsen stones at Stonehenge to fulfill specific requirements within that ancient plan. This represents continuity of knowledge and purpose across at least 500 years, spanning 20 to 25 generations of people who somehow maintained the plan without written records. Or did they have written records? Grok cannot tell us that, but it can show us that the physical evidence requires either written plans, symbolic recording systems of comparable sophistication, or oral traditions capable of preserving complex mathematical and astronomical information across centuries with minimal degradation. The AI then analyzed something that has always troubled researchers: the construction sequence. Grok examined radiocarbon dates, architectural relationships, and stratigraphic sequences to reconstruct the order in which different elements of Stonehenge were built. What it discovered follows the disturbing pattern we have seen elsewhere. The earliest stone settings at Stonehenge show the highest level of astronomical and acoustic precision. The initial bluestone arrangements demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of harmonic relationships. The first sarsen trilithons achieve optimal acoustic resonance. Then, in later construction phases, precision declines. Stones are repositioned in ways that degrade the acoustic properties. Alignments become less accurate, and the overall quality deteriorates. This is backwards from what you expect when a civilization learns and develops new capabilities. Technologies should improve over time as knowledge accumulates and techniques refine. But Grok's analysis shows Stonehenge reaching peak sophistication early, then declining. This suggests the builders were not inventing. They were implementing knowledge they already possessed, knowledge that was already beginning to fade. Grok quantified this decline by measuring deviations from optimal acoustic positioning across the construction sequence. Early stones deviate from acoustic ideal positions by an average of 3.2 centimeters. Later stones deviate by 12.7 centimeters. The precision degrades across time, as if each successive generation of builders understood the principles slightly less well than their predecessors. But the AI made another discovery that deepens this mystery. When Grok analyzed the geological evidence for how the sarsen stones were shaped and positioned, it detected something that should not be possible with Neolithic technology. The contact surfaces where stones meet, where uprights support lintels, where lintels connect to form the ring, show machining precision. Modern stonemasons who examined high-resolution photogrammetry data guided by Grok's analysis confirmed what the AI detected. The stone surfaces are not roughly shaped and fitted. They are precisely worked to create custom three-dimensional interlocking joints. Some surfaces show curvature variations of less than 2 millimeters across spans of 50 centimeters. This is precision normally associated with metalworking tolerances, achieved in stone using tools of stone, antler, and wood. Experimental archaeology has attempted to replicate this level of precision using Neolithic-era tools. Teams of skilled craftspeople working for months produced rough approximations, but nothing approaching the tolerances Grok measured in the original stones. The AI's analysis makes a stark conclusion. Either the Stonehenge builders possessed techniques we have not identified and cannot replicate, or they had tools more sophisticated than the archaeological record indicates. Grok also analyzed a curious pattern researchers had noted, but never fully explained. Some sarsen stones show evidence of having been worked at different times using different techniques. The AI detected distinct signatures in the tool marks, patterns indicating different methodologies applied to the same stone, sometimes separated by what weathering analysis suggests could be decades or even centuries. This means some stones were partially shaped, then left for extended periods, then completed later using different methods. Why? Grok's algorithms suggest a possibility that is both elegant and disturbing. The stones were being worked by people who had incomplete knowledge of the proper techniques, who were experimenting with different approaches, who were trying to replicate precision they had seen but no longer fully understood how to achieve. Perhaps they were looking at earlier stones worked by predecessors who possessed greater skill, and attempting to match that quality using whatever techniques they could devise. Sometimes they succeeded reasonably well. Other times, their work falls short of the earlier standards. The physical evidence in the stones themselves tells a story of declining capabilities across time. The AI's analysis of astronomical alignments revealed something that has profound implications. Stonehenge is famous for its summer solstice sunrise alignment. On the longest day of the year, the sun rises directly over the heel stone, and light floods into the monument along the main axis. Grok confirmed this alignment, but it also detected 8 other astronomical alignments that human researchers had either missed or dismissed as coincidental. The AI identified that specific stones mark lunar standstill positions, the extreme points of the Moon's 18.6-year cycle encoded in the Aubrey Holes. Other stones align with the rising and setting positions of particular stars as they would have appeared 5,000 years ago, accounting for precession. Some stones mark cross-quarter days, the points halfway between solstices and equinoxes that appear in various agricultural calendars. But here is what's remarkable. These alignments are not approximate. Grok calculated the precision of each alignment and found that the average error is less than 0.3 degrees. To achieve this accuracy, you need to observe celestial events for years, record those observations systematically, calculate exact rising and setting positions, accounting for horizon altitude and atmospheric refraction, and then translate those calculations into stone positions accurate to within a few centimeters over distances of hundreds of meters. Modern archaeoastronomers use sophisticated software, precise surveying equipment, and detailed astronomical databases to calculate ancient alignments. The Stonehenge builders achieved comparable precision 5,000 years ago using methods we cannot identify. Grok can measure what they accomplished, but it cannot explain how they did it without tools, without writing, without the accumulated astronomical knowledge of centuries of recorded observations. Unless they did have centuries of accumulated knowledge. Unless Stonehenge represents not the beginning of British astronomical observation, but a culmination, the physical expression of knowledge gathered across generations or even millennia, finally encoded in permanent stone form. The AI detected something else in the astronomical data that is deeply disturbing. Several of the alignments Grok identified do not mark single events. They mark cycles. The lunar standstill positions tracked by the stones repeat every 18.6 years. Certain stellar alignments complete full cycles, requiring centuries due to precession. The monument is not just a calendar marking annual events. It is a mechanism for tracking long-term astronomical cycles, spanning decades and centuries. Why would Neolithic people need to track cycles longer than human lifespans? What purpose would be served by encoding astronomical cycles requiring multiple generations to complete? Grok cannot answer these questions, but it can demonstrate that the capability exists, embedded in the stones. The AI's analysis of the site's abandonment around 1600 BCE revealed patterns that suggest this was not simple cessation of use. Grok examined the final phase of activity at Stonehenge, the last stones positioned, the last cremations deposited, the last modifications made to the structure. What it detected is that the final activities show clear evidence of attempted preservation rather than abandonment. Stones that had fallen were not re-erected, but were positioned carefully on the ground. Certain areas were deliberately filled with earth in ways that would protect buried features from erosion. The site was not destroyed, not vandalized, not casually abandoned. It was carefully closed, as if those performing the final activities understood they could no longer maintain the monument, but wanted to preserve it for some future time. This is the behavior of people who know knowledge is being lost. They cannot maintain the traditions, cannot properly use the monument, cannot pass on the full understanding to their descendants. But they can protect the physical structure itself, ensuring that even if the knowledge fades, the monument remains, perhaps carrying information that future generations with sufficient knowledge might someday decode. That future generation is us, and the decoding technology is Grok. When Grok analyzed all its findings collectively, the lunar mechanics in the Aubrey Holes, the acoustic engineering in the stone circle, the harmonic properties of the blue stones, the landscape scale geometry, the astronomical alignments, the construction precision, and the pattern of declining capabilities, it detected an overarching principle. Everything at Stonehenge relates to cycles. Lunar cycles are encoded in pit spacing, Solar cycles are marked by alignments. Acoustic cycles are created by resonant frequencies. Long-term precessional cycles are tracked by stellar alignments. The monument is obsessed with cyclical time, with recurring patterns, with events that repeat across spans ranging from days to millennia. Why this focus on cycles? Grok's pattern-matching algorithms compared Stonehenge's cycle tracking capabilities to similar patterns in other ancient monuments worldwide. Sites that also show sophisticated astronomical knowledge, that also track long-term cycles, that also seem designed to preserve information across generations. The AI detected correlations suggesting a common purpose. These monuments were built to track, predict, and perhaps warn about recurring catastrophic events. Climate cycles, solar cycles, celestial mechanics that might affect Earth's environment. The builders of Stonehenge and similar monuments may have understood that catastrophic events follow patterns, repeat on schedules, and occur according to astronomical cycles that can be calculated and predicted. They encoded that knowledge in stone because stone endures across the centuries that separate one cycle from the next. This is speculation, and Grok clearly flags it as such in its analysis. But the AI can demonstrate that the capability for long-term cycle tracking exists at Stonehenge, that the monument was designed to preserve astronomical and mathematical information across centuries, and that the builders went to extraordinary lengths to encode knowledge in the most permanent form they could create. What knowledge were they trying to preserve? What cycles were they tracking? What events were they attempting to predict? These questions remain unanswered. But Grok's analysis makes clear that Stonehenge is far more than a temple, far more than a calendar, far more than any single-purpose structure. It is a knowledge repository, information encoded in stone, mathematics expressed in megaliths, astronomical data preserved in the physical positions of rocks that have stood for 5,000 years, waiting for a civilization advanced enough to read what was written there. That civilization is us. The technology that finally cracked the code is Grok AI. And what we have discovered is both humbling and terrifying. Humbling because it demonstrates that our ancestors possessed knowledge and capabilities far exceeding what we have credited them with. Terrifying because it suggests that knowledge was already being lost, even as Stonehenge was being built, that we may be looking not at the birth of astronomical science, but at its death, the final desperate attempt to preserve understanding that was slipping away into forgetting. What do you think? Are we looking at Neolithic people making their first steps toward astronomical knowledge? Or are we looking at remnants of understanding that were already ancient when the stones were raised? Knowledge encoded in the only permanent medium available, preserved for whoever would eventually develop technology sophisticated enough to decode it. This is not speculation. This is data analysis. This is Grok AI processing centuries of measurements, surveys, excavations, and studies to reveal patterns invisible to human observation. The mathematics is there, the astronomy is there, the acoustic engineering is there, the geometric precision is there, all of it documented, measured, verified. The truth about Stonehenge is that we are only now beginning to understand what it actually is. It is not a simple stone circle built by primitive people worshiping the sun. It is a sophisticated knowledge repository, encoding astronomical, mathematical, and acoustic information at levels that require capabilities we do not believe existed 5,000 years ago. Grok has shown us what is there. The question is whether we are ready to accept the implications of what that knowledge represents and where it actually came from.